Hey, what's going on everybody? MAGFest 2020 just wrapped up over the weekend and there were a lot of amazing cosplays, cool music, and of course, tons of video games. Since I was mostly interested in the gaming part of the con, I spent most of my time focusing on that, watching tournaments and playing video games. They even had 3 separate rooms dedicated to gaming, one for console, one for arcade cabinets, and one for all the indie developers to show off what they've been working on. Usually when I go to cons or E3, I don't typically go to the indie booths, but this time around, I spent more time trying out their demos. It's a tough world out there for an indie developer, so I wanted to give some love and talk about what they've been working on. Maybe you'll see something you like, and you can check it out for yourself. I will provide all relevant links in the description below. Before I start, these will contain games I like and games I don't like, but they are all personal preferences. Maybe there will be something I don't like that you will like, or vice versa. So in no particular order, here are some of the indie games I played at MAGFest. She Dreams Elsewhere is a pixel-style RPG game drawing inspiration from renowned games such as Earthbound and Undertale. The designs are simple yet a bit outlandish, which represents the setting of the game very well. The main character is in a coma and has to fight through the challenges in her dreams to wake up. The background is made up of abstract objects and colors, a contrast from the level designs which is mostly black and white. Other important visual cues are also colored differently from the rest of the world, allowing it to stand out more and to easily tell the player, hey, look at this. Friendly NPCs and text are usually shown in blue or white, while enemies are usually displayed in purple. The dialogue is also something I liked. It uses contemporary slang without being overbearing or feel like it's forced. Take for instance the skill Roast, which has a description, delivers a sick confidence destroying burn, has a 50% chance of setting the enemy aflame. Combat is turn-based with many options for winning. They have the standard attack and skills, but also have a limit break that builds up as the battle goes on. Once the limit bar is full, you can unleash a devastating attack on all enemies. This game also has a link attack, which reminds me of an all-out attack from Persona, and is triggered the same way, when all enemies are knocked down. This game is what appeals to me the most out of everything I've tried. It seems like it has a lot of potential in the storytelling, and the combat is right up my alley. One Step from Eden is a real-time action strategy game with pixel art and roguelike elements. It's a game where I have no idea what it's about since the demo contained only combat gameplay, and the dialogue it did have was fourth wall breaking lines that didn't have anything to do with the story. On the bright side, the combat is really fun. This game caught my eye because of its grid combat system and what they call deck building, which is basically just choosing the skills you want to obtain and use. It's fast paced and there is a lot going on, but it kept me engaged in the game and I was having a lot of fun playing through the display demo. Every time you beat a level, you can pick from 3 cards to add to your deck and increase the number of abilities you have. Usable cards are randomly loaded into your hand, and you can only use 2 cards at a time, which are put in from your hand automatically. You can't use another card until one of the 2 usable cards have been used. Once your hand has been used up, a new hand gets generated and you start over. The battlefield can also change with obstacles or tile breaks, which means you have to be extra careful about where you move. Bosses are fun to play against since they have many different kinds of attacks with different dodge timings, keeping you on your feet. Basically, this is just a Mega Man Battle Network game without the overworld and just the combat, which is perfectly fine by me because I love Mega Man Battle Network. Eagle Island is another pixel roguelite platformer, and one that I found difficult, which is perfect because I like challenges. It has a nice design aesthetic, and the textures and characters are drawn and animated well. It was enjoyable to explore the different regions and see the game play out. I played the roguelike version, which, as expected, if I die, you lose all the abilities and progress you've made. They also have a story mode and a speedrun mode, which I have not tried out, but I'm sure there isn't a need to go into detail about them. The gameplay is focused around platforming, and aiming your owl companion to charge at enemies and objects to damage them. The gameplay is fun, but I'm still having some trouble adjusting to aiming the owl and getting the timing down, because you can kinda spam the owl attack, but it depends on when it lands the hit or when you miss. It's currently out for Nintendo Switch and Steam, but it seems like it'd be more of a fun casual game to play on a Switch in short bursts rather than spending hours on it. Kickpot is another game that really appealed to me, and it's probably in my top 3 favorites at the con. It's a 16-bit kind of platformer type game. There aren't any enemies to worry about, but there are deadly spikes and saws everywhere that will instantly kill you if you touch them. The objective is to reach the end of the stage without dying. It's basically like Super Meat Boy gameplay with old school Mega Man style aesthetics, which I'm all for. You can only jump in 2 directions, left or right, and you can also double jump. You can grip onto walls and slide down slowly, allowing you to jump again. It doesn't sound very interesting on paper, but it's a lot more fun to play through the game and trying to get through those tough levels. It's a perfect game for speedrunning because it does look pretty cool if the person knows what they're doing and just zooming past everything. Junk Puncher is a retro-style pixel art platformer that reminds me of those games from the SNES days like Ninja Gaiden. It follows the same formula where you go through the levels and you only have 2 buttons, jump and attack. But you can also slide by pressing down and jump, or kick in the air by jumping and attacking. This is also one of those games that seem like it would be fun to watch speedrun, and they do have a speedrun mode. The game is fun to play with a variety of enemies that behave differently, forcing you to think about the best way to get past or defeat an enemy. They also have really good cues to signal when they're about to attack, making the game easy to pick up, but requires a little bit of effort to master. Levels are designed in a fun way, so you're not always just going to the right. There are different stages that contain a variety of traps and terrains to traverse. Overall, a really neat game that I would be interested in seeing more of. I've been talking about a lot of pixel games, so let's take a look at a game with a different art style. Enter #Blood, a game about a kid fighting vampires. This game caught my eye as well as another buddy of mine because of its art style. They take artistic inspirations from our childhood favorite cartoons like Dexter's Lab, and they nailed it. Immediately after seeing their booth, we began talking about how it reminded us of the shows from Cartoon Network we used to watch as kids, and of a browser game we used to play called Cartoon Network Summer Resort, which, granted, it was a pixel flash game, but it still gave us that feeling of nostalgia and excitement. #Blood is an action-adventure game where you play as Becky, a normal young girl who has to balance schoolwork and killing vampires. This makes it sound kinda like Persona, but this game isn't anything like that. The setting seems to be based around the town she lives in, but it could extend to further areas. The demo area only had her home and her school, but based on what I've seen, there is a lot of potential here. While you're exploring, you can look at a lot of assets in the environment in which Becky would usually have a smart remark for. The dialogue in this game is witty and funny, but in a much more lighthearted way than She Dreams Elsewhere, and I think they capture the mood of the game well. They don't take themselves too seriously and have a lot of great moments. The animation is done extremely well, and everything from attacks to facial animations to hit reactions were great to watch. The gameplay is action oriented, so you fight monsters as you explore the school, and it does a good job of teaching you how to play, and using what you've learned to defeat the bosses. For example, stabbing an enemy eyeball with a thrown pencil was how you killed bats, but now I had to continue to apply that logic for other enemies such as the boss. The boss in the demo was also fun to fight. It didn't just stand there and take your hits. You had to figure out their attack pattern and how to hurt it because you can't just go up to it and punch it. This game has a lot of potential, and I'm excited to see how it gets received when it goes live. Okay, back to pixel games. Next up we have Fault and Fragment, which is a top-down action game. The setting seems to be some kind of fallen world where things aren't working out so great for most people. You're a ghost that can enter or leave a body, allowing you to do different things. You can talk to other spirits while in ghost form, or find different paths forward that only a ghost could pass through. In humanoid form, you can talk to other humans who give you some flavor text about the world and sometimes give you requests to complete. In this form, you also fight enemies, which is enjoyable, with different executable combos using normal attacks and skills. If you're not careful, you can die, so there is some challenge in there too. You can unlock different skills by talking to spirits who sometimes require you to do something before you can unlock it. You can also find different weapons, changing up how your character fights in combat, and find a playstyle that fits you. Playing this game reminded me of playing games back in the day when they never held your hand. It doesn't tell you where to go with waypoints, and it also doesn't keep track of your quests, so you better remember what's happening in the world. The tutorials also feel old school in that they sometimes don't include important specifics, like how to go back into your body when you're in ghost form. This game is enjoyable, but there wasn't really anything that hooked me. The art style and animations aren't terrible, and gameplay overall was enjoyable, but the experience as a whole was pretty basic and leaves something more to be desired. And lastly, we have Unbeatable, a rhythm game that reminds me of Bust a Groove from back in the PS1 days. Unbeatable is an interesting idea that has potential, but personally I think it was implemented poorly. The player has 4 main buttons to press: any D-pad direction, left bumper, right bumper, and any face button on the controller. Notes would come from either the left or right side, and either from the top or bottom, with each main button corresponding to that note. The problem is that it's really not as intuitive as it should be, and when the song gets chaotic, it's easy to blank out and forget which button to press, unlike other rhythm games like DDR, which have arrows to press, or any arcade game where the buttons are lined up with what's in front of you. It's also hard to tell the timing for the button presses, as there is only a thin white line that's barely noticeable in the background to line up with the notes. From the songs they had available for the demo, they all sounded nice and I could get into them. But sometimes the notes that came seemed totally random and didn't match any melody or bass that I heard. Otherwise, it seems like a game that has a lot of potential if they can fix the playability issues. I did have some fun playing it when I got into it, and when I didn't have to really worry about all the things I mentioned before. So these are some of the indie games I've played at MAGFest. It was cool to see games like #Blood being made, as I can't really see a AAA studio getting the green light to make a cartoonish game like that. At the same time, there were quite a few pixel style games, and while I do like the retro style when done well, it seems like the indie market is filled with too much nostalgia driven projects. I get that retro is all the craze and it's what people want, but I would like to see more new and unique things, especially when it comes to art. Let me know what you think of these games and if there are any you want to try out or didn't know about.